Hi, Mark McCumber here for ACTV, and with me today is Michelle Beckham Corbin. Michelle, welcome to our show today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Very excited to have you. You're a marketing specialist. You own your own marketing business, and we're here today to talk about social media.
Yes, and I'm really thrilled that we're here today because what I specifically wanted to talk about was social media and our teenagers.
Well, that's a very, very hot topic these days and very, very important. So you have hot tips for the teenagers of the world to what they should do with their social media, their Facebook pages, their LinkedIns, their MySpaces, and every other little media outlet they have.
Everything, you know, it seems like every day something new is coming out. I want to say that the latest is a social media platform called Vine, and it gives you the ability to create some very small, I think about 20-second videos. And so you can just imagine how many videos are going to be launched by kids and adults, but you know, gives them that opportunity to use their iPhone or iPad and launch themselves out into the internet.
Well, that has some really interesting implications. We have to see how that all ends up. Because Vine, that would be interesting. Hopefully they keep it nice and keep it good, little 20-second snippets, sound bites, so to speak.
Keeping it nice and keeping it good is the key.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
Well, you have spent quite a few years in the marketing industry, and do you want to give us a little background of how you started out here and ended up here?
Absolutely. I actually started my career with Procter & Gamble, and I spent 15 years at Procter in marketing and customer business development. And so really kind of honed all of my information about consumer branding and what we as marketers want to find out from people so that we can sell them the best product possible. And I happen to have two teenagers, and I got involved personally with social media, gosh, I want to say back in 2004, 2005. So I was really an early adopter. And honestly, the story of how I got involved, my son was very involved playing an online game, kind of similar to like World of Warcraft, but a game where you can play with people from all over the world and talk to them. And he and his friends would have sleepovers, and all they talked about was this particular game, not World of Warcraft, but a different one. And I started to get concerned as a parent because I thought, and I should step back and say, this was way back when he was like in 5th grade. So, you know, 2005-ish. And I thought as a parent, you know, should I be concerned? Who are these kids talking to online? And so I started to investigate and started to do a bunch of research about the early stages of social media. So in those early days, this was before Facebook. This was probably at the beginning of things like MySpace and chat rooms. And I am also a writer, and I started to write about my experiences of investigating, you know, how kids were communicating with each other. And I started writing a novel, and as I was doing my research, I just began to learn more and more, and started to incorporate it into, started to incorporate the knowledge of social media tools into the marketing work that I was doing. And so my husband encouraged me to go off on my own and start my own business, because at that time it really was emerging, right? Social media was just emerging around 2006, 2007, and there weren't a lot of people that were incredibly knowledgeable about this because it was so new. And so long story short, I started my company, and this is my 5th year in existence, and I work with businesses as a consultant to help them determine where they need to be from a marketing perspective with digital, so that they can connect with their target audience and get them to take the action that they would like for them to take. So kind of got there from that protective parent point of view, totally fascinated by social media and the way communication was going, and just ended up really loving all of that and turning that into a business.
Well, congratulations on the 5-year mark. That's very exciting for an entrepreneur, and with a good, solid, traditional background in marketing that you probably got at Procter & Gamble. and then versioning that into the whole new marketing world, which includes social media, and it's so incredibly fast. The acceleration of how this has been developing is just staggering.
It is very staggering.
So it's great, and as a consultant for businesses, and an emphasis now on the younger generation to get them to understand the etiquette and proper way to use these, because even kids nowadays are establishing brands, if you will, on themselves. And gosh, we have some young entrepreneurs that are making millions of dollars coming up with great ideas for marketing. So it's very timely that you're doing this, and a great focus, great target segment that you're working with.
Right, and I think, you know, with that knowledge that I have from that marketing perspective, I kind of feel like there's so much information that I want to share with teens and young adults and even parents, so that they understand what their children are doing online and how that information can impact their brand. Because you're right, today we are all brands. And before we have that opportunity for people to get to know us in person, they're going to come across us online first. And so what they find truly needs to be the best definition of who we are as people. And that's what my goal is to really help kids to understand how to put their best brand foot forward first.
And it's probably applicable to college students, high school students, even down to elementary students who are able to have their own pages. Some parents are probably a little bit shy about letting their kids get on the social media networks to a certain age. I guess it's almost like the driving age. You have to be of a certain age before you can do that, young man, and you know.
Well, and actually, the social networks have set limits, but kids are very smart these days, and they go around it. So for example, Facebook, I believe the minimum age is 14, but you will see many junior high kids, and maybe even younger than that.
They figured out a way to navigate.
They just change their birth
It's like
year.
a good hacker will always figure out a way to get in, you know.
Yes, because they want to join the party and be part of all of that.
Kids are smart, and they get it figured out really quickly. So with regards to this, and it's fascinating, because I think that what this does is the information age has opened up such an amazing ability to get to all this information, and this new social media outlet is kind of works almost the other way. We can send out all this information that's ad infinitum. It can go out once it heads out of the network. Depending on how it multiplies, it's like to the what power times what power is that, you know, and it's kind of an interesting phenomenon that's been growing really quickly, that kids now have access to this, and what do they do with it? And I think that where you're going with your target with helping kids understand this is really important.
It is, and you know, Mark, it's you can have, as a parent, you know, or school administration, can have talks with kids so that they understand, you know, the things that they should be doing or should not be doing online. And even if you've got a kid that understands that, the thing that kind of throws a wrench into everything is you can't control what your friends say about you. So, for example, let's say we're talking about Facebook. You can have a kid who is being very careful about protecting their brand and, you know, posting, you know, PG pictures, PG-13 or whatever, you know, appropriate content, but you don't know who's going to make that comment on a picture that you've shared, or say something about you, etc. And so while it's very important for kids to put out the right content, they also need to have what I call kind of a reputation management system in place so that they can be aware of conversations that might be going on about them. And a really simple way to do that is to use what's called a Google alert. I think many of us have taken the time to actually search our names in Google just to see what pops up. Well, instead of having to do that over and over again, you can actually set up a Google alert so that on any given timing, whether it's daily or weekly, etc., Google will comb the entire internet looking for whatever the search term is that you use. So, you know, your name, and it will send you back via email anything that it finds. So it's kind of a great way to,
nice feature.
To stay on top of what people are saying.
For adults too, by the way.
Oh yes, yes. And you know, the other thing that I tell kids is, be proactive. Instead of waiting for someone to affect your brand, whether positively or negatively, create some of your own sites, right? So for example, kids could create a blog site or a personal website, or if they're older, college students can create a professional LinkedIn, which is professional networking, can create one of those sites where they're controlling the content. They get to put in the information that really is important about them. It's not what someone else is saying about them. And so that is just a fabulous way to kind of own your brand and be in control of it.
And I think that's great. I think one of the challenges with us all being so accessible through all the new devices that we have in the way of phones and cameras, et cetera, that as you had mentioned, especially as it relates to kids or younger kids even, that recordings can be made without you even realizing it. The tapes can be made, and as you were talking about the Vine, that things can be posted really, really quickly without you even realizing it. And so I guess it's recommending almost a consciousness, an awareness that you're teaching kids to, hey, always be aware. It's almost like a safety issue when they're teaching self-defense. They always say, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of. It's a very, very similar kind of paradigm is to say, hey, you have to be aware of what you say to people because you never know when a device is on and whether it's either recording your voice or recording the actual event. That's probably a really good hot tip for kids.
Yeah, and the other piece of that is, you never know when the rules are going to change. So, for example, there's an application that came out not too long ago called Snapchat. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's the ability to take a picture and send it to someone, and then it will dissolve and go away after about 10 seconds. So it's kind of meant for you to look at it really quickly, and then the evidence
like
is
Mission
gone.
Impossible.
Exactly.
Yes. I get that.
I actually tried to use that example with a kids group recently, and they
that.
kind of looked at me like, "What are you talking about, Mission Impossible?" But yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But what has happened is hackers have figured out a way to be able to break into that system and retrieve those photos. So you can only imagine with something that will dissolve very quickly what whether they're teens or maybe even some adults, may think that they want to do with those, with a quick photo, thinking that it'll
it's
be
funny.
gone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's unbelievable to me what algorithms they're able to write to do these programs and what they're able to change and manipulate. So it is a brave new world of digital information and ability to do things. So I wasn't aware of that. That's something I have to be on the lookout for.
Well,
not that I use that program, but
yeah, but you know what, you bring up a really good point, because kids are very savvy as far as digital goes. Maybe not on, how does it affect my brand and what does it, put out there about me that could affect, college or scholarships or even employment, et cetera. But at least they're savvy with how to somewhat use the tools.
Sure.
The problem really is that there are a lot of parents that aren't. And so kids are using some things, and because the parents themselves don't know how to use a particular tool, whether it's Facebook or Snapchat or anything, then they can't really guide their children as to, how to use something or what to watch out for, because they themselves just are not familiar with how it works.
Sure, it's like previous generations when moms and dads would try to help their kids with the new math. And they'd go, I can't, would you teach me the new math? I can't quite get that. So, that's interesting perspective. Well, and in this new age of reputation management, going back to the whole branding thing, that it is really kind of important, because your brand is really about you and your reputation and what you stand for, and whether you be in business or whether this is just personally. We're so in everyone's face these days. I mean, it's almost like you can Google anything and find out something about someone anywhere. Everything has become so much more public record and instantaneous than it's ever been. And so again, it's the kind of brave new world of this whole digital society where everything is instantaneous. And it makes the demand for parents and their kids, especially as we're relating now to the younger kids, to be ever so aware and cognizant of what's going on in that world. It's probably harder for a parent because they have to monitor that, they should monitor that, and it's just more responsibility. So it's good that you're trying to get the word out for these kids to understand how and what it is, what's the proper protocol, what's, how to present. If you're going to present, let's put our best foot forward, because everybody in the entire digital world could see this if they wanted to.
Exactly. And just coming out of the economic times that we've been in, jobs are so competitive today, right?
Yes.
And so a young person shouldn't, you don't want to have some kind of negative information out there about your brand that could affect that, because recruiters, that is exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for you online.
Sure.
They really are. They're looking at whatever they can possibly see publicly through Facebook. They're definitely looking at LinkedIn, doing that Google search to see what kinds of information comes up about your brand. And not to say that that's negative, because, there could be great things. You could have a kid that's doing all of these wonderful things, and it's all spelled out there on Google. So I didn't mean to make it sound like it's all negative. But they're just looking to find the person online and to get some information about them.
Well, in the real world, though, the truth of the matter is, as these kind of things become prevalent and all this information is available to potential, college boards that are looking to maybe say, hey, yeah, we're going to accept you into our program, or a job recruiter who are saying, we've got 100 or 200 or 500 applicants for this particular job, and we go through this process of distilling through and going through all the filters, that couple little bad marks against you could, at the end of the day, really have an impact on whether you became someone they would really want to consider hiring for that job. So I think there's good news and bad news to this whole accessibility to our profiles and of all of our information. We have to live a lot squeakier clean than maybe we used to, and just be conscientious and be aware of everything. Well, I think that the whole kid angle is great, because kids are young, they're impressionable, they're very peer-driven, and sometimes can make mistakes and bad choices just based on the type of personalities they are. Some kids are leaders, some kids are followers, et cetera, et cetera. So as you try to get that message out to kids, I think that's a really great thing, because just teaching them at the young age, when they're formidable and they know better, will make a huge impact. And who knows where this is all going to go.
Well, and the key thing is, and we've been talking a lot really about what they can do individually, right? And we're talking about their own personal brands. But if we look at the use of social media and just what it's doing as far as communication, there are all kinds of situations that young people or adults can get involved with as well. Most recently, with Notre Dame and the Manti Te'o situation. Yes. The situation of having a friendship with someone online and discovering that they really don't exist. So there's lots of other kinds of situations that can happen. And then most recently, there was a situation with the football team in northern Ohio, and just a really, really sad situation, and the message about what happened with the rape, etc., went all over. It went viral. The social media really became part of the investigation, as well as part of spreading the message all over the world.
Well, that's a great point. Another thing that I saw in kind of reviewing some of the things that you've been up to, and some of the hot tips that probably work for kids and adults, were some little hot tips that you had for your survival skills, your social media survival skills, and I like that. It was talking about knowing your brand, owning your brand, controlling the message, building your tribe, and monitoring your brand. Do you want to elaborate on that little mantra there, if you want?
And just for the audience out there, what Mark's referring to is there's a seminar that I put together for kids, and most recently I did it for the Inter-Alliance organization. It's a nonprofit focused on high school students and keeping them really enthused about STEM careers, so science, technology, engineering, and math, and keeping them here in Cincinnati with careers. But anyway, I presented that seminar social media survival skills, how not to sabotage your
Oh, yeah.
future. And those were the key points that I kind of built the presentation around. And as we've been talking, it really is, all about knowing that brand and controlling the content, right? As we said before, by creating some of your own sites where you have access and can, shine the light in the direction
Sure.
that you'd like to shine it in.
Sure.
And one of the other pieces that we talk about in the seminar is building your tribe, right? And it's kind of like a nice little term, and you might think, well, what does that really mean? But today, because of digital media, kids have that ability to kind of build professional relationships.
It's a social milieu. It's a network. It's your tribe.
Right.
Yeah.
So even, if you're looking at something like LinkedIn, you can have a college freshman or college sophomore beginning to connect with people in the profession they'd like to work in for perhaps a summer internship. So you start to build those connections before you even graduate. Or let's say you're a high school student and you want to play a sport in college. Connecting digitally with maybe, University of Cincinnati's lacrosse team, following them on Twitter or conversing with them on the team's Facebook page. But starting to proactively establish those relationships with people and organizations that may be helpful to you as you move through.
Sure. And with the new digital world, it puts a light. The old saying was, it's all who you know. And so these days, the ability to get to more people, you could know mass quantities of people in certain situations that could help you professionally and socially and get you all kinds of information and forward your progression in the world, whether that be professionally or just personally. So
Right.
very exciting.
Right.
Very, very exciting stuff. One of the things I wanted to also ask was, what new stuff have you been working on besides your seminar and all your other works? Anything really new and exciting for you coming up?
That's a great question. I love what I do because every day is new and exciting and imposing all kinds of challenges. So I've got a lot of interesting projects that I'm working on. I wanted to kind of answer that question with what area of social media am I really excited about
Okay,
right now?
sure.
And that's Instagram. Are you familiar with Instagram?
I am not.
Instagram is an app that you can use on your phone to take pictures. And when you take a picture, you have a variety of filter options. So you can make that picture look, artsy or...
Then I am familiar with it.
Okay.
Yes.
And that is a social media tool because when you take the pictures, you can actually use a hashtag, which is a method of cataloging information, and you can converse. So you can actually have long conversations underneath the picture. And what I love about it is...
Blog-like.
Yeah, very much blog-like. And you have the ability to talk to people all over the world because they've come together because they like that photo.
Sure.
Or you both like that
Interesting.
photo,
I
etc. And then here in Cincinnati, the Inquirer is always looking for great photos. And if you use the hashtag ENQ for Inquirer, they look at all of those feeds, and if they see a picture that they'd like to feature, they'll put it in the paper. This happened to me recently. I was at a meeting down at Music Hall, and I happened to be leaving, and I looked up at the gorgeous chandelier that was just hanging right above my head, and I took a picture, and I Instagrammed it, and I hashtagged it, and I found out a couple weeks later that they featured it on the front page of the paper.
Oh, did you win a prize?
No
Prize.
No prize.
No trip to the Bahamas or anything
No
fun
prize.
like that. No.
I just had the joy of knowing that other people got to see what I loved, because the filter that I used just made the lights coming from the chandelier, they looked like they were dancing. It was just a very cool shot.
Well, that sounds cool. I have to look into that a little more. I'm always messing with photography and all that stuff. So,
well, when we talk about the trends that are happening in digital marketing, visual is absolutely huge for this year and moving forward. So anything that has to do with photography or video is going to play prominent roles in marketing because, as you know, as a photographer, we're visual people, and we become very excited or very attached to something that we can see versus, let's say, just, a printed paragraph, right? We respond to pictures much more than text. And so you're just going to see a lot of that in marketing as we move forward.
Well, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and nobody wants to read 1,000 words these days. They want to get instant gratification and get the concept very, very quickly. And I think that's interesting because as there are now so many options for people to put their own websites together. You know, Facebook essentially becomes almost a little mini website, so to speak, maybe not as elaborate and have as much control over it because you're limited to the program of what it can do. But as people put these websites together for themselves, and there's so many platforms now that we can all sit there and create our own websites pretty soon and upload them. Any hot tips for young and old alike who are putting websites together and about content and I think where I'm going with this diatribally, if you will, is that when people put websites together, and this is a conversation I have often with other professionals, is that, you know, how do you get that message across really, really succinctly? Because in marketing, you have a very small window of time to get your message to people before you lose them. And what is the average time you got somebody's attention? What is it, 3 nanoseconds or 4 nanoseconds or?
Yeah, I don't know about the nanoseconds, but you know, today it's all about search engine optimization. And so, you know, years ago with marketing, companies were in the push, the broadcast mode, you know, buy our product, you know, it's kind of like one message fits all within hearing distance, right, or billboard distance or whatever. And today it's all about inbound marketing and people coming to us as a business or photographer or whomever because they've searched for keywords. You know, we don't use the phone book anymore. Everything is Google. Whether you're looking for, you know, what's the closest pizza place, you know, to this new town that I'm in, or pediatrician for my kid or whatever, it's all search. And so for folks who are building their own websites, whether it's, you know, to showcase photography or anything else that's, you know, not a big company or something, it's all about embedding those keywords into the content, into the titles of you know, the articles that you might have on your website or the About Us section, etc. And then even getting into the guts of the website, and you get into things like meta tags where you can, you know, place those keywords, etc. But it's all about people going into search and finding us for what we stand for.
Well, and those are all really, really great tips to people putting marketing together. Hey, it's been a really absolute great pleasure to meet with you today and talk about all these great things you've got going on, your seminars and your interest in helping kids with their social media. We really appreciate you being on our show today, and we're gonna have. We'll probably have other opportunity in the future to have Michelle back with us and talk about some more stuff and get a little more focused on some of these things. So with that, thank you.
Oh, you are welcome. If you can't tell, I love talking about social media.
That's great, and it's exciting.
And thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today here at Anderson Community Television. I'm Mark McCumber, your host, and look forward to seeing you again next time.